And I remember I made a meme a few weeks ago where it was that you'll never meet a flat earther who isn't also anti-vax.
And
it's
also
it's
pro-Trump.
it's
You are listening to the Why Smart Women podcast, the podcast that helps smart women work out why we repeatedly make the wrong decisions and how to make better ones. From relationships, career choices, finances, to faux fur jackets and kale smoothies. Every moment of every day, we're making decisions. Let's make them good ones. I'm your host, Annie McCubbin, and as a woman of a certain age, I've made my own share of really bad decisions. Not my husband. I don't mean him, though. I did go through some shockers to find him. And I wish this podcast had been around to save me from myself. This podcast will give you insights into the working of your own brain, which will blow your mind. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm recording, and you are listening on this day. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land.
Well, hello, smart women, and welcome back to the Why Smart Women podcast. For those of you who are regular listeners, you may notice that I'm finally getting my voice back, which is a relief to everybody except possibly my husband. And also, regular listeners may have gleaned the notion that I am part of a loosely bound community of people who have taken it upon ourselves to counter the misinformation, the tidal wave of misinformation and actually disinformation because it's deliberate, that is washing over our society and causing a lot of trouble. So today I'm very excited to be interviewing one of my favorite people that I have come across on the internet, who is doing a stellar job of pushing back against the cookers, we call them the cookers, who spread this very, very dangerous disinformation. He goes by the name of the Snarky Gherkin, which I think is endlessly entertaining, and he has a wonderful presence. So I'm very, very happy to be chatting to Snarky Gherkin today. Hello.
Thanks, Annie. Thanks for having me. I think the intro was far too kind, but yeah, thanks for the invitation and happy to be here.
Yeah, it's interesting among this community of people that we find ourselves in is, as opposed to the cooker community, which I find to be just awash with misplaced confidence.
Mm.
I find the people that I talk to that are part of the skeptical community are not awash with confidence, and it's sort of what I like about them. So it's fine. It's fine. It's all good. So tell me,
Yep.
if you don't mind, how you came to be, how you came to create this character, the Snarky Gherkin, and what got you involved in the first place?
Oh, it's a bit of a long story,
Yeah,
but
go for
I
it though.
think initially, I mean, I've sort of just like most people, I've toyed and played with some dank meme pages over the years and had various successes here and there with certain pages. But for me, it really all came to a head during the pandemic. I think for a lot of people in the various groups that we're in. Um, I think as mentioned on a post previously, I was involved in the vaccine trial back in late 2020. So had signed up to that and the COVID vaccine trial. I found it quite fascinating and
So where was
quite
that?
interesting.
How did you get involved in the vaccine trial?
Yeah, so it was a little bit. My grandmother at the time said it was a little bit irresponsible, but I just saw an ad for it on Facebook, came up. I think I'd had a few wines at the time and
Yeah, fair enough.
bit of,
We all
bit, bit of
need to
Dutch
be
carriage
supported
and
by alcohol. Yep.
that's right, a bit of Dutch carriage. I thought, you know what, I will sign up to that. So I signed up to it, and within the process was quite fast. So the next morning, I'd had a phone call from the institute that was doing the trial. Went through a bit of a questionnaire, and before I sort of let the dust settle on what I'd done, I sort of was in and getting blood tests and various bits and pieces. This would have been around about August 2020. So
So
quite,
the pandemic hit pretty much in Australia in the March,
I think
correct?
April, yeah, March to
March,
April
April, and this was in
thereabouts.
the
And
August. because of
Yes,
course
yeah,
we had to exist, didn't we, for that first couple of
that's right.
years with no
That's right.
vaccinations. Yeah.
Yeah, so I sort of just jumped headfirst in at the time. Just not a lot of thought into it other than just wanting to just do my bit. I knew by far my body wasn't a temple. Not that I was reckless, I had a young daughter at the time, but I just thought to myself, it's just if I can sort of help, other
Sure. Was it
help other people. So
AstraZeneca? Was it Pfizer? Do you remember what it was?
yeah. So it was AstraZeneca. But it was a variant of the AstraZeneca vaccine. So it
Mm.
was what's it called? The Serum Institute of India. So
Ah,
they were
uh-huh.
working in conjunction with
Yeah.
AstraZeneca and to create and it wasn't necessarily about from what I understand, like it wasn't about the effectiveness of the vaccine itself, but it was like safety trials
Oh,
to ensure,
okay.
and so that whole process was fascinating. It was good to just get a medical once over as well, just
What
pull
was
bloods and
fascinating about the process?
just talking with the researchers involved, with the doctors, just to sort of understand more about the vaccine, the way, and the people smarter than myself could correct me on this, but
Mm.
the way it was described to me early on that really, even though mRNA technology was, relatively new, the research into it has been going on for 20 years.
Yeah.
In
Yep.
early trials, some of the
Yep.
mechanisms used in that was very similar to the Hep B vaccine. So,
Yep.
some of the genetic material that was used to deliver it. So, the way that it was described and the way that I understood it was, well, there weren't really any ingredients in this vaccine that I hadn't received prior, probably multiple
Mm.
times. So for me, that sort of put me at ease. From a, there's a little bit of sort of hesitation, but I'd signed up and here I
But
was.
but
I
you were
didn't like
doing it for
needles.
the greater good. And I think that part
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
narrative is interesting as
yeah,
well, that part of the resistance and part of the cooker story.
yeah.
Just for listeners,
Mm,
we call people that are sort of rampantly conspiratorial in their thinking and anti-vax. We call
yeah,
them cookers. Just to make that clear.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that part of the narrative was that it was this brand new thing and they were rushing it out, but it had
Mm.
actually been in development for 20 years, hadn't it?
Yeah, that's it. So it wasn't necessarily new technology. I mean, the
Mm.
promises that it could sort of deliver seemed exciting and new and still are. Like there's still some really exciting research and things happening on that front. But so I went in. I had a little. I think if I recall, I'd had a sort of like I won't call it a micro dose of the vaccine, but it was. I can't remember the actual mils itself, but it was a fraction of what a normal dose would be. This would have been around October, and then in November, I went in for more tests
Mm-hmm.
before the actual first dose itself, and so
Mm-hmm.
to see how the body would respond, and then fast forwarding to sort of I think it was February 2021, went in for the second dose, and yeah, and that was followed by tests. The way it was explained to me was that my bloods would then be sent to three different institutions, and they weren't necessarily told what it is that I'd received, but they were to look at all of
Ah,
my vitals and my bloods and to see if there were any
anomalies.
any anomalies. It was very at one point I even had an ultrasound on my torso and just to sort
Wow.
of look at inflammation, and so it was very thorough. And I mean,
This
again, on a
as well counters the narrative that,
yeah,
big pharma are just, rushing everything through
yeah,
and just
yeah,
being haphazard. And of course, they're not at all. It's, I mean,
that's right.
they're going
Mm.
through, they're jumping through all the scientific hoops, right?
That's right. That's right. So for me, where the journey started, it's a bit of a long story, but I very naively posted on. Well, I don't think it was naive actually, but I posted on my personal Facebook page about that I've involved in this initial process with the AstraZeneca vaccine. Um, Welcome any friends or family if they want to ask me any questions about it. But I've
Cool.
I've had a
Cool.
dose. I'm feeling fine. I'm not picking up radio signals. It was a bit of a light-hearted sort of post, but just to let
Yeah.
people know what I was doing, and that was quite overwhelmingly positively received. It was then the second post in around about February after I had the second dose and results had come back, and I was here. I still was. I was fine. Someone within my sort of friends or colleague network must have shared a screenshot with that to a various pages or groups. I was just my phone just kept pinging, and I had about at least a dozen message requests from people, and I thought, okay, and a lot of them were just insane messages, just absolute, what we'd say, batshit crazy messages from people, or anything from, you're a government shill, and what are you getting paid, and for those that don't know, it's actually, you can't get paid for being a subject of medical research.
Yeah, but the truth must never ever get in the way.
That's it.
Of the cooker narrative, and I think it's just good at this point to just consider the fact that how quickly they jump on anything, and to your naivety. Because I have or not actually don't anymore because I can't stand the conversations, but I have had people in my life that are anti-vax, just generally speaking, just wouldn't have the whatever, just believe the rubbish that was propagated by Andrew Wakefield that the MMR caused autism. And so I had those people in my network, and then COVID hit, and in my naivety I thought, oh well, this is going to be the end of the anti-vaxxers, because we've got this pandemic, and surely to God this means that we're now going to be, full steam ahead and trying to vaccinate. No, that's not what happened.
That's right. Well, we had a similar thing, just deviating a bit. It would have been, I think would have been 2017, 2018, when the federal government at the time, childhood vaccination had dropped to an extent, and then I think it could have been, I think it was even before that. It was the no jab, no play sort of rules set in where they'd cut Centrelink benefits, and it was, I remember smirking with my wife at the time, because suddenly the uptick was extraordinary in that, the conviction of these presumably, I don't know if it was all, it was all driven by anti-vaxxers, or if it was just complacency, but suddenly childhood vaccination rates skyrocketed to the high 90% again, as soon as there was a financial incentive. And and I probably thought the same would true, like, when the pandemic started, I bet all that, let's see how sort of whether these some of these people are going to die on the hill, figuratively speaking, or actually. So, so I mean that's what happened. I mean, and where it sort of got sinister was then, just reverting back, was my wife then started getting messages saying your husband's going to be dead in 3 months or 6 months, and so that for me just absolutely it staggered me. And so it then. It then sort of sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole. Like, who are these people?
Who are they?
Who are they,
Snarky? It's a good question.
That's it. So I stumbled across a couple of personalities. I don't think they're worth naming, but I saw one in particular that was at my local shopping centre filming live, I think the morning when the mask mandate came in, and they were wandering around on a live calling people sheep, and I think he walked up to some old dear on a motorised scooter sort of thing, calling her, like, just mocking them, and I thought these people are just absolute nasty, vicious, and I thought this needs to be countered. So I joined various groups, try to get my head around it. I felt that humour was perhaps the most appropriate way for me to approach these sorts of things. I've sort of, it's interesting. So before the pandemic, I was kind of used to go down the rabbit hole on a lot of multi-level marketing schemes.
Me too.
And I knew some people involved, and tried to sort of look at the numbers behind a lot of these, and just overwhelmingly, the likelihood that they were going to make money off them was minuscule. But I remember thinking at the time, a lot of these, hey, you can earn $4,000 a day working from home. A lot of those people were suddenly quiet when the pandemic started. And I think a lot of them just pivoted from that sort of MLM schemes, a lot of them did pivot to I think what we call grifts in the
Yeah,
various groups. They
grifts.
just
Yeah.
became
Yeah.
grifters, selling horse dewormers and, pebbles and various,
And yeah.
alternative
So
things. So it was,
I think it's interesting that um, the idea that that's really interesting that the multi-level marketing
mm,
peeps then pivoted because it's all about selling useless products, right? That don't help. I think it's interesting when you start looking at the most vociferous voices in the conspiratorial cooker space, and they're all
yeah,
selling something. I mean, we call it grifting because
yeah,
it's just everything they sell is pointless. Dave
that's
Oneggs, who sells the weirdest, some sort of thing that goes around your neck or you hold or you hang it in your car
yeah,
and it keeps the vibes away. And of course, he's very big on the chemtrails. That
yes, yeah,
that's there's endless pictures of him, endless videos of him. They've always got their shirts off too. Like, can they just put a shirt on? Because I don't,
yeah,
I shouldn't have to look at their bare torsos because they're not attractive. So he's always in his car with no shirt on, banging
yeah.
on about the muck in the sky, and then hanging something that costs I don't know what off the rear vision mirror that protects you from something. I mean, it's nuts, right?
Oh, they're phenomenally expensive, and my sort of thoughts with the whole chemtrail thing at the moment, and I keep posting about it, but it's like they're almost so close to accidentally being correct about something, but it's like, yeah, actually maybe, mass aviation travel as we do globally, you've got 10,000,
Yeah.
planes in the air. Maybe it's not great for the environment to have that much sort of, fossil fuels,
Yeah.
getting pumped that, to the stratosphere or thereabouts. But it's like, no, like it's this strange mental gymnastics where they'll insist that, human industrial activity has no
Yeah,
impact on the
why?
environment at all,
Why
but
is that?
simultaneously there's
Chem
these poison chemicals, and it's almost like we just need to call fossil fuels poison
chem
chemicals or
and
something,
they'd be
and
good then, right? They'd
they'd
get
they'd
it.
be on board. They'd be protesting in coal mines for freedom or something.
Yeah, yeah, freedom.
It's it's
It's the
just
freedom movement.
it's the
They've
freedom.
been up on
Yeah.
the Gold Coast this weekend,
Yes. The
with some
abysmal
was
turnout.
it was what so what they've done is listeners is um these cookers have hired a space somewhere and they've invited a series of just batshit crazy speakers. And then what did they call it, Snarky? Did they call it the Freedom Conference? What is it?
It's the Freedom Summit something. I think originally they thought they had 2,000 tickets, and I think a lot of them were just basically just people, some shit stirrers, just
Yep.
getting 50 tickets for themselves. And I think closer to the actual event, they downsized it
To
drastically.
a toilet.
From yeah, more or less to a I don't know if I don't know if this was just a meme or if it was the real thing. I think it was some sort of um Masonic lodge or something they'd enter. With the irony
Oh
behind that,
no.
I'm not sure if it is actually. That could just be. I could have
Oh
fallen for the meme
no.
there, but I think I did see a picture of some sort of lodge or something. But it was a small, very small venue. I saw it. They briefly panned out once, and I think there would have been 50 people. They were asking people to come down from the back and the
Oh
sides, and could
yeah.
we all just clump into like the center to create? I think they wanted to at least get a few snapshots of there being at least
10 people there.
a decent crowd. And I think for day 2 or 3 of the event, they had an exciting announcement that you're welcome to bring a friend for free.
For
So
free.
I think it was
Mm.
it was an abysmal turnout. The hosts awarded themselves
I
prizes
know,
for
I saw
various
that.
things.
Dave
They
Onix awarded
yeah
himself
the meme lord or something, the
the
meme war
meme or
veteran
the most
or
memes. The
some
thing is, they keep getting chucked off platforms because of the
yeah.
dangerous. They're the thing is, we laugh at them, but they're actually a risk to public health. That is the bottom line. These
They are.
people,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and also they can't their capacity to cling, like they're clinging to the fact that there was lockdowns. It's like
Yeah.
4 years ago. We've all moved on and got on with their lives, but they're still talking about it. And Monica
Yeah.
Smith, I note, has is still trying to grift off people to have Dan Andrews sued or convicted of some
Yeah.
criminal. What's all that about? Do you know?
Yeah, a bit of I'm not too familiar with yeah, I'm not too familiar with the basis. I don't even think she's very familiar with on what basis she wants to
Well,
convict Dan
she
Andrews,
doesn't know anything.
to be honest with you. But I think she very quickly raised $134,000. Now that figure, I suspect that I don't think that's real, to be frank with you. So the number tally had she was updating it manually on her website,
Mm.
and I'm just, she's likely to get 50 reactions these days on any post that that she puts up. I'm not sure how much she really has raised, to be frank with you. I know people that donated, 99 cents, just to sort of see if the tally that she was putting up was retroactive, or whether it update, and it didn't update. So
Right.
as silly as that is, so it wasn't like an automatic. She presented it like, oh, here's an automatic tally on my website. This is how much I've raised, and it didn't respond when there was at certain points when people donated various things. So I think there's even a question on how much she's even raised. I think like most things, like with a lot of this movement, is that they've come to a conclusion and they're
Mm.
essentially just trying to backfill it. So
Yeah, absolutely.
she's she wants to prosecute, but she's now just desperate to find a reason to prosecute, and
And get some
she's
money
hired.
because none of them work.
Yeah,
As far as I can see, none of these
that's right.
people that are in the Cooker conspiratorial movement actually do anything except sell useless things. And for those
Yeah.
listeners that do not reside in Australia, because we have a lot of listeners in Europe and in America and in Canada. Victoria is another state in Australia. I'm broadcasting from Sydney. Melbourne is the capital of Victoria. And during the COVID pandemic, there was major lockdowns in Melbourne, in Victoria, which of course saved a lot of lives. And the cookers down there just went bananas. And all these
Mm.
years later, they're still trying to I don't know what they're trying to do, sue or something. He's no longer even the premier. Like he's at somewhere, he's probably in the Maldives, lying down, having a well-earned
Yeah.
rest. But they just will not leave him alone, right?
That's right. I think for a lot of these people, it was the glory days. It was a sense of purpose. It was
Mm.
it was the first time, and a lot of these personalities had. You can find pre-pandemic YouTube videos of them, at least three or four of them, top of my hand, where they tried to have lifestyle wellness channels or
Right.
motivational channels, and they just couldn't crack that sort of that sort of
Market.
audience. But
Mm.
yeah, and when the pandemic happened, a lot did shoot up into the sort of the social media stratosphere, and it just ran with it. I mean, I remember one of my criticisms of one of the prominent cookers down in Melbourne at the time. They sort of they originally, it all started with, we're just asking questions, and how can you stop me from just asking questions? And so then suddenly they had 100 t-shirts printed to sell that COVID is a scam on it, and it's like, well, hang on a minute, like, are you actually asking questions, or are you're now making a statement? And it's like, I asked the question to one of these personalities early in the piece that, okay, let's say if you like, I just asked them privately, like, let's say you receive information tomorrow that convinces you actually that this is a real pandemic and COVID is an issue. Are you going to dispose of those t-shirts, or are you still going to sell them because you put a financial
Yeah,
outlay
yeah,
forward to
yeah.
sell them? So you now have a commercial interest in perpetuating this sort of, and they just
False
blocked me
narrative.
after that. So
Mm.
yeah, so it's this sort of, it's like, well, they've pivoted from just asking questions to just blatantly, well, hey, maybe I can make a few bob out of this, and I think that's where it became, some probably did make some money out of it. I think it's a bit like an MLM scam, really, in
Yeah,
itself. For
multi-level
every
marketing he's referring to.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that's it. For every one that's made a bit of coin out of it, there's thousands that
That
haven't.
haven't.
They've just become deranged, sadly, and I think the saddest part that there are a lot of these people that just they lose connections from friends and family, and you just see it. It's almost it is a real shame, and so they
They
just
lose
double down and triple
connections,
down.
and yeah, and then
Yeah,
what they do is they're not invited to the baby's christening because they refuse to
mm,
get vaccinated. So then they get isolated, and then what they
yeah,
do is they drift back towards a community that welcomes them with open
that's right.
arms. And I think it's important to note, and this is certainly what we're watching with America and RFK, is that all these people that are anti-vax are all selling something
Yeah,
that is meant to do the same job. So it's all
that's
just
right.
marketing, right? Like Joe McCullough and the whole thing with the
Yeah, yeah.
Children's Vaccination Network. They're all selling something. Ivermectin. What is with ivermectin? It's
Well,
horse paste.
yeah, it is. My theory sort of before, well, in the early days of the pandemic, and I think one of my theories was that this sort of thing could be prevalent in the US where healthcare is a privilege for a lot
Yep.
of people.
Yep.
And so you can imagine a situation where if we couldn't afford healthcare, but
Yeah.
you had a genuine medical problem, even if it's something as simple as a toothache, and so then you need to resort to some alternative way
Yep.
to deal with that toothache because you just don't have
Sure.
you might not even have the excess to pay for the health insurance claim that you'd make.
Sure.
That people are drawn to these forums, and so no, you could use this. I don't know, like you could use uh, I don't know, kosher salt, for example, to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to sterilize it and take some of the pain away. And so suddenly it's like, but I always thought that to me, I can understand how Americans can get stuck into that. But surely that wouldn't be the case in Australia, where world class healthcare is free
Yeah.
and accessible. I mean, it's not exactly free, but it's
Well,
accessible.
close enough.
It's close enough. And so I think what surprised me the most is how prevalent it became in Europe and Australia, where I still don't think it's as strong because
Don't
it's
you?
just
I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
well, I think this Freedom Summit shows. I mean, it sounds as prevalent, like it sounds as bonkers. On when they're online, they could be you can get ratioed by thousands of people, anti-vaxxers and stuff. But when it comes time to actually show up anywhere, I
Yeah, they're
think they
not.
they
Yeah,
can't
they haven't. Yeah, yeah.
muster.
They can't be
They
bothered,
just
I
can't.
don't think.
Yeah, they just can't muster the numbers that they could during the pandemic and these freedom summits and things. It's there's 50 people show up. So I'm not sure how much of it really is getting caught up in just the social media algorithms and the sort of buzz of it all.
Yeah.
But something I do find fascinating with them, and just the psychology behind it is it's almost like for people that describe themselves as free thinkers,
Yeah.
you could almost like you can almost like tell them what their views are on other things because they all seem to almost think the same thing
Yes.
about
I
everything.
know. Yeah.
So
I
it's sort of
know.
like I was thinking this earlier, where it's like on balance of probability, because there'll be outliers that I'm sure people listen to this, I'll say, well, I know someone but on balance of probability, if someone describes themselves as anti-vax, I can probably guess with certainty what their view is on marriage equality, for example, or
Yes, it's
or I
moved to
could
the right,
I could
hasn't it?
that's right. I can guess what their views are on like abortion rights, and I can guess what I
On The
can
Voice,
guess.
right?
Yeah, yeah, on the voice. Yeah, another point. And that's not this like, I could guess what their opinion is probably on the Russia-Ukraine war, for example. There's this interesting, and I remember I made a meme a few weeks ago where it was that you'll never meet a flat earther who isn't also anti-vax, and
And
it's
also
it's
pro-Trump.
it's that's right. It's rare. There's a few, but it's all become it's almost become like a belief system,
Well, it
and
is an ideology.
it's
It
that's
is
right.
absolutely an
Yeah,
ideology. And the weird thing is, as the collective ideas have coalesced into this ideology and it's moved to the right,
yeah,
it's taken elements with it that we would have thought were sort of to the left, like, the sort of people
yeah,
who were spiritual and sort of into yoga. They've now, that whole thing, that's now gone to the right. And it's something about, I was thinking about this yesterday, about how often people who describe themselves as highly spiritual are also just highly individualistic and not that
mm,
interested in, I don't know if that's right, but I was thinking that yesterday. Are they that interested in the common good or the notion of sort of a cohesive, well-rounded society? I don't know.
We're just pausing for a minute to hear a word from our sponsor.
The Why Smart Women podcast is brought to you by Coup, a boutique training, coaching and media production company. A coup, spelt C-O-U-P, is a decisive act of leadership, and decisive leadership requires critical thinking, so well done you for investing time to think about your thinking. If your leadership or relationships would benefit from some grounded and creative support, if you want team training or a conference presentation, reach out for a confidential one-on-one conversation using the link in the description, or go to coup.co.
I feel like, and this is just sort of thinking out loud here, but I feel like, to some extent, and I've had discussions about this with various individuals, but the lack of, I don't know if it's the right way to put it, but to some extent, the turning away from a lot of mainstream religious institutions, and
Yep.
rightly so in a lot of circumstances,
Sure.
and
Yep.
they've done it to themselves
Yep.
and all that. But I do feel like it irks me when I hear like Monica Smith, for example, when she'll refer to herself as Catholic,
Ugh.
and it's like you to again, 1,001 criticisms about the Catholic Church, but during the pandemic, all the diocese and the Catholic Church itself and the Pope were very clear that it's as has happened many times in the Church's history, that during plagues and things through history, that it's time we isolate, we protect, and we
Yep.
vaccinate when it was available. So for her to then say, well, actually, if you are a fully fledged Catholic, you're actually going against the Holy See, your Holy See's kind of edict on what it's asking of its followers. So I did find, same with the Anglican Church here in Melbourne, or Anglican churches, they were very clear. They did, and it was always just these sort of fringe groups that had been excommunicated, or these evangelical kind of startups and stuff that seem to have ignored a lot of the sort of
Ignored the tenets,
the
I think.
rules. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. I'm probably going way off, and I don't actually
No,
know what
but
I'm
I
talking
sort
about.
of
But
agree. I sort of agree,
yeah,
because I think that the sort of the evangelical arm, which sort of ends up going towards the idea of the prosperity gospel, right?
yeah.
So
Well,
if I'm
it's a lot more individualistic, isn't
that
it,
it's
and
it's
less
it's the
community
yes,
based. And
it
yeah,
is. And I
yeah,
think, of course, the church, we know there's massive problems with the
yeah,
church.
yeah,
We know this, but to your point, there was a really, at the bottom end of the church as well, they're very, very supportive of those who
yeah,
are in need. They are. And I do
yeah,
not think that you find in these sort of new age spiritual sort of culty communities, there is that same that same urge, that same belief system that underpins it, that we have to take care
yeah,
of each other. I find it very, very individualistic. And I mean, I write all sorts of stuff. I've come out recently having a major go at retreats. I'm like,
mm,
because it's just
yeah,
such a sort of a middle class sort of white activity, and we go
yeah,
there and we
yeah,
work on our healing. It's like, guys,
yeah.
come on. If you,
I get
ugh.
this sense we're starving for a sense of community. But just back to your point, like this new age spiritualism, it is sort of a la carte, where you pick the bits that you like and this and that. But whether it's, I think think what's missing though is that authoritative sort of, maybe not authority figure, but at least you get some consistency and coherence with
100%.
that group's
Yep.
position, whether it's the Grand Mufti or the
Yeah.
or Mufti, sorry, or
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Rabbi,
the
whatever.
head rabbi. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's quite clear and concise. And again, and there's also that sense of history that I think that comes with these institutions as well, where a family friend of ours is uh, um, is Archbishop Stephen Cottrell now of the Church of England. So we, not deeply religious person, but we have quite sort of serving ministers and stuff on the periphery of our family. And
Sure.
they said during the pandemic, you don't need to look far within within the church's documents itself just to see, well, we've had to do this many times where we've had to isolate because of plagues and
100%.
pandemics
Yep.
and things. And there's a almost to an extent it's a time for quiet reflection and yada yada yada. So I sort of feel there is that sense of I think with a lot of these sort of cookers, as we call them, for a lot of them it was the first time very clearly that they had become interested in or become aware of this sort of thing. Like in terms of I think if you'd asked some of these prominent personalities in 2018, hey, what do you know about the Centre for Disease Control, or what they'd say, I don't have a clue,
Yeah,
and
wouldn't have a
rightly
clue.
so.
That's right.
But
That's right.
suddenly it's armchair experts, listening, to various personalities and things like that. So, but yeah, sorry to go off track
So
about
that's
the.
okay, but I have two questions for you.
Sure.
One, because as you know, recently I encountered Rosemary Marshall at DY
Yes.
and with her fake
Yeah.
Forest of the Dead,
Yeah.
like a core
Forest
flute.
of
It was almost like
feelings, or
it was
yeah,
weird.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah,
and so we had a bit of an altercation.
yeah,
I was losing my voice, so I couldn't say much. But
yeah,
honestly, they get this very fervent. They've got sort of this sort of mad, fervent look in their eye when they approach me, and I
yeah.
wonder, in your opinion, do you think they believe it, or is it just now a convenient way to, to belong to a group?
I think the latter. The latter. I think that I think someone I shared a post yesterday. There was a chap, Dr. Dan on X, Twitter
I
X,
saw that.
and
Yeah.
and I think he nailed it. I think that reverting back to what we've said previously, I think in her mind, she's someone that's perhaps she's lost friends. She's lost personal connections with people, probably has lost family connections as well. And I feel like it's a sense of community and it's a sense of purpose.
Meaning and purpose.
I think she was. I don't know. I mean, I didn't. The irony of my interactions with Rosemary, I didn't know who she was a month ago, until she came onto the page and just started spamming. Because I did. How dare I look into any of
Yeah,
the
how
Forest
dare
of the
you?
Fallen
Yeah.
cases, and so and she thought I had it out for her. I said I didn't actually even know who you were, but here we are. So for those listening, so she then invited me on to an open debate. I said I'd happily have a discussion with her, but then she'd said, well, I'm going to bring two of my vaccinated friends, and so my two vaccine injured friends,
Oh, vaccine
and
injured. They love that.
and so I just said I'm not gonna sit there and be brought into a spectacle of you and your two friends that are just gonna show. I mean, I could bring two vaccinated friends that aren't injured, and does that nullify?
Yeah.
And so it just got a little bit zany. I think I lived a bit rent free in her head. She kept sort of posting, rumbling things about me. For a while. So, I snap back a bit and just try to debunk a bit of what she says. But I think answer to your question, I'm honestly not sure
No,
whether
I'm not
she
either.
really believes it or not. I feel like I don't know anything about her past. I feel like she may have been an intelligent person or career, and I think they're at that point in their life where it's they're past retirement. And I think for them
It's
this is their
relevancy
project.
deprivation, right?
Yeah, that's it. There's a social aspect of it too. You're speaking to people out and about. You're out, and it's a beautiful part of the
Yeah,
world.
sure.
It's
Annoying
Northern
people. Yeah.
Beaches, is it, or thereabouts?
I don't think
There,
they were
there are,
doing very well. I mean, they had
no, they're
because
not.
they're
No.
not. When I said to her, those pictures you've got, just for the listeners, There's
Yeah.
laminated pictures on sticks with people that are supposedly vaccine injured or vaccine dead.
Yeah.
And Snarky Gherkin, who I'm currently speaking to, had debunked a lot of that. Some of the people were alive. And things like the guy was vaccinated and then 6 months later died in a car crash. So there's this
That's right.
desperate need to sort of, according to them, prior to the vaccinations, nobody ever died of a single thing.
Yeah.
Everyone
Yeah.
just lived forever. Now vaccinations have come along and apparently it's just caused everything. And I was going to say about the need once they've climbed, once they've sort of put their stick in the ground and said I'm an anti-vaxxer, there's this interesting flaw called identity protective cognition.
Yep.
And what it does is it's once you're in a group, the last thing you want is to stand aside from that group and disagree because then you'll be expelled. And because of our very, very tribal brains, we're terrified of not being included, not being liked because some part of us
That's
thinks
right.
we're going to die. So I sort of get that. But what interests me about you and why I specifically wanted to interview you is that everything I read, because I read a lot of literature, critical thinking literature, is that if you want to get on side, if you want to understand someone that has an opposing point of view, you then have to sort of climb in there with them, identify the value that's driving
Mm.
their thinking, and then work out where you have a value that's sort of aligned so you can find the common ground. And I notice that with you,
Yep.
you're just going head on. And I really like that about you because it's like, I like the satirical nature of what you do. And I
Yeah.
wonder if you went through the first route first and then chucked that away and then just going for sort of laughing at them.
There's two answers to that question. They sort of converge, but essentially, I without trying to sort of dox myself, my line of work is that I investigate certain things that happen. So think of it from a public liability side of things. So whether it be a fire that starts on a truck or a machine that breaks down, or even someone that sort of gets hurt. So my default setting is I always give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I
Uh-huh.
always sort of assume or presume that what they're saying is correct, and then try to sort of work that. Then just sort of send. It's almost like sending the information through filters. And so in my line of work for more than a decade now, I've become very used to reading very thorough medical reports, very thorough engineer reports, surveying reports, that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
it's a real deep dive, and it's become almost like a muscle reflex for me just to be able to read
Uh-huh.
large documents, properly, and try to disseminate sort of what happens. So I've tried to approach the Forest of the Fallen cases in a very similar way, where I don't have the luxury of interviewing these people that have made these submissions. Of course, I've invited, if anybody, and I've said this on the page, that if you want to correct me on that, please reach out to me. We'll make amendments. I've had one lady ask me to please take it down because she submitted it in 2022, and in 2025 it all seems a bit cringe now, and she doesn't want that on there, and
Okay.
she's also requesting Forest of the Fallen to remove her little laminated stick as well. So, but
Cool.
I've always tried to approach these where, okay, giving them the benefit of the doubt, that I believe that they think that they were injured. That's the starting point. So I think it's an honest starting point as well. I
Yeah.
think it would be disingenuous to say that. I mean, flippantly, we might say they're all fake, but they're what we call it the forest of the fakes. But um, you know, I genuinely try and come into these and read, and so it's just about when I'm reviewing it. I'll start. I do it in batches, so I'll review. When I've set some time aside and commit to reviewing, say, three. And so when I'm understanding a lot about anxiety, nocebo effects, a lot of these symptoms, they're just classic
Oh,
anxiety.
of course they are.
They're just classic, and I've had some cookers sort of like claim that I'm somehow accessing privileged information or medical records that I
Wow.
shouldn't have access to. But I'm basing these off all of the information that they provide. So a lot of the time, they will say, or sometimes I'll read I'll do a bit of a hunt. I found a couple of coroner's reports, which are all publicly available.
Oh,
I found social media
classic,
posts.
classic.
I reached out to I found a post on an obituary for one chap that yeah did sadly pass away, but there was a long list of health issues and
Nothing to do with the vaccine, right?
his wife was mortified that it was the sister that had submitted this on their behalf.
Uh-huh.
Again, I won't name them.
No, don't.
They will
Don't.
speak to the sister, but they were thankful for highlighting it to them. But it's again also mortified that they were being used in that way. So I don't have access to any privileged information. A lot of the time, it is just trying to marry up what certain symptoms mean,
Sure.
what they do, and there's just some things that just biologically just don't make sense or aren't possible.
Oh,
There was
100%.
one recently where 2 days after the vaccine, they'd had cysts in their brain, and so that I mean it to me it's like I'm all ears if you want to tell me that I think the fact that they think the vaccine caused the cysts to form, but to tell me that happened in 2 days that's not medically documented.
That's right.
If
It's
you
not
search
possible.
for that, it's not. It's the yeah. So it's just things like that. I'm convinced that a lot of these people have been in various communities and things. They've been led to believe that they're a victim of
Oh,
a vaccine
sure.
injury. So I don't want to mock them. There are some that are just blatant, like they're either there was one that it had to be a troll, and I'm surprised that they even printed it and posted it. Or there's been a few, I think, but there was one in particular where the 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 dear, she says that I wasn't coerced, and I felt a little bit fatigued after the first jab, and I had a mild headache after the second jab, but I'm feeling great now. And they posted that as a vaccine injury, and so that we sort of did a bit of a celebration because we thought, well, this is the first genuine
Yes.
plausible case that we've come across. We have seen somewhere, where they've got myocarditis, and there's markers for that, and that's acknowledged and understood and
But I think
treated
as
for.
well,
But yeah,
your general tone that you
yeah,
use, because you're very funny. It's very witty and very, very well written. We'll put a link in the show notes. They're very, very funny,
yeah,
but they're quite. There is a sort of almost, I would say, in some of your posts, there's almost like a taunt, and I
yeah,
quite like that and find that interesting that you've gone in that direction, that sort of
yeah.
vague, sort of satirical taunt. I like it.
Yeah, an old history professor of mine who I admire was once telling me about the sort of anti-vax network in the 1800s and how it's just always been around.
Yes,
And so there's various studies, and I'll send you some links. And I
that'd
think
be
there was
great.
a interesting one out of Taiwan, where they had but it was about countering vaccine misinformation,
Yeah.
and the conclusion was that mocking it was the best way to address it. So
Interesting.
it wasn't about blocking it, because the natural default setting is, well, we need to ban these people, and I agree, but it actually it actually isolates them even more and
Yeah. No,
doubles
I
them
think
down even
okay.
more.
That's
And so
really good.
for
Okay.
me, yeah, so that's one of the motivations with me, is that is apparently mocking it um is the best way to convince people that actually it's not. Now I'm not aware of anybody who's seen any of my dank memes and said, actually, you've made me think otherwise.
No.
I'm but it I feel like we need to get better at making fun of
Well, I
not
think
necessarily
yeah.
the people, but it's the some of
Well, it's
the
the people that are on the
yeah,
fence. So I think, to your point, we're looking at trying to get to people who maybe would be influenced by the cooker voice, and then
yeah,
maybe they hear your voice or my voice or the
Yeah.
voice. So my favorite ones are, batshit crazy cookers.
Yeah, they're
I think
fantastic. I've
they're
got a
great.
lot. Yeah, they're great. Yeah, and
Blocked
all
by
they're
blocked.
doing is they are just sharing the things that
That's
that
100%.
that they're saying themselves. So and
Yep.
yeah, they're not even mocking anybody.
No, they're just saying this is what they
They're just
said.
highlighting the silliness of it all. So
And
yeah,
blocked by Pete Evans, I think are
yeah,
also
yeah,
really, really good.
yeah,
You're great. Rosemary Marshall and the Playgrats, she's really good. They're really
yes,
good. And of course, I'm a paid up member of the Australian Skeptics. And
okay,
so generally, I speak nearly every year at their conferences, and
yeah,
they're in a fight. We're all in a fight, I think, aren't
yeah,
we, to try and stem the tide and just bring back or introduce the notion of use your critical thinking skills. Don't
that's
just
right.
believe something because the person has a fervent look in their eye and they've got as unfortunately as we know, anecdotes, narratives have way more punch than a bit of data, correct?
That's right. Well, and we're social creatures in that way. We tell each other stories and they are far more memes and anecdotes are far more potent, I think,
Yep.
than actual. And it's hard to see. It's I sigh when you see a graph and numbers and so it's like I'd far rather a colourful meme that
Yeah.
sort of tells me in about the lizard part of my brain can figure out in five
Yep.
seconds what it means, but it's
Exactly.
hard to stop. But I think what I love about a lot of these pages as well is it actually holds some of these personalities accountable because
Mm.
they're very quick to do the dirty delete on a lot of things, and there are things that have been posted by prominent anti-vaxxers that you can't find anymore unless it was for these pages. Just complete absurd things.
Yep.
Whether they're ranting at the moon, there was a blood moon, or claiming couple of years ago, like there's a famous video of Monica Schmidt that she's long deleted, but for her, she just said, kings and queens back in the olden days used to sacrifice their elderly for the good of the kingdom, and all this sort of
Oh,
basically
okay.
just
Yeah.
saying things like we should just
Yeah.
let us get on with our lives,
Let old
and this
people
is
die.
just let them die, and but then in the same breath talk about her sort of Christian values
Uh,
and how every life is sacred, and
Ooh,
so
so disgusting.
it's revolting in a lot of ways. So it's important. These groups do a fantastic job at almost cataloging some of this
Yep.
nonsense, and these people aren't going away. And it's for now, and it's also for the future, I think, too. Just to
Oh, for
remind
sure.
ourselves that because it's all good to some have sort of mellowed out and moved on to other things, but there was one chap in Melbourne, Phanos Panayides, who when he thought he had a moderately big following of 100,000 people, he was calling for nurses to be hung and things,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't think we should ever stop parroting that until he sort of issues an apology about that, or publicly says that, hey, actually, I was really wrong about that sort
They
of thing.
never
I
will.
think we need to continue to. I mean, he's deleted it and thinks it doesn't exist anymore, but it's
It's out
there, and
there.
it's
Yep.
that's why I really like the batshit crazy cuckoo page and ones like it, because it's important that we can't forget when we all had to stand up and stand together.
They
These
didn't.
cookers folded. They were the first to just fold and say. So I think it's important that we emphasize that this is who they really are. So
Well, I
on
think
that note, so
we all do a really good job. And I'm proud of us because it's not
thanks.
easy and lots of people dislike us. I've got
That's right. That's right. And you don't dislike people for telling the truth. I think you oh, sorry. Like the shouting and carrying on in my opinion, is it's there's something not right there if they're behaving in that way
Oh, 100%.
yeah.
Well, it's
So I
been an
said that back to
absolute
front, but anyway.
It's been an absolute delight talking to you, Snarky Gherkin, and
Likewise.
an absolute pleasure. That was very illuminating. And let's just keep doing the work, shall we? And
Thank you.
hopefully, at some point in the future, we'll have another chat, and things will be going more our way.
I would love to. Thanks again for the opportunity, and we'll see you back on the meme battleground, I guess. So,
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Thank you so much. Talk
thank
soon.
you.
So thanks very much, listeners. I hope wherever you are in the world, you have your critical thinking hats on, and I hope you have a lovely day. Take care. Stay safe. Thanks. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning into Why Smart Women with me, Annie McCubbin. I hope today's episode has ignited your curiosity and left you feeling inspired by my anti-motivational style. Join me next time as we continue to unravel the fascinating layers of our brains and develop ways to sort out the fact from the fiction and the over 6,000 thoughts we have in the course of every day. Remember, intelligence isn't enough. You can be as smart as paint, but it's not just about what you know, it's about how you think. And in all this talk of whether or not you can trust your gut, if you ever feel unsafe, whether it's in the street, at work, car park, in a bar, or in your own home, please respect that gut feeling. Staying safe needs to be our primary objective. We can build better lives, but we have to stay safe to do that. And don't forget to subscribe, rate and review the podcast and share it with your fellow smart women and allies. Together, we're hopefully reshaping the narrative around women and making better decisions. So until next time, stay sharp, stay savvy, and keep your critical thinking hat shiny. This is Annie McCubbin signing off from Why Smart Women. See you later. This episode was produced by Harrison Hess. It was executive produced and written by me, Annie McCubbin.